We'll call to order the Facilities Committee of the Whole meeting for Monday, September 22nd, 2025. Our first item is the consideration of our meeting minutes from May 27th, 2025. I would seek a motion to approve the minutes.
So moved.
It's been moved by Mr. Anderson. Is there a second? Second by Dr. Lund. Any discussion? We'll take a roll call vote.
Lund,
Yes.
Palmasino,
Yes.
Flynn,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
Clevin,
Yes.
Manley,
Yes.
Larson,
Yes.
Hodak,
Yes.
Berger,
Yes.
9 yes, 0 no, 0 absent.
Motion passes. Item 3, the presentation of the draft 5-year facilities plan. Mr. Jonathan Elwine.
Thank you, President Berger. Let's see if we can get this to work. Okay, so we're going to start out. This is going to be a two-part presentation. First off, this is a new initiative that I've been working through the past year to incorporate principals and building level staff into our capital planning. So before I actually get into the capital plan, I just want to go over this. So this is what I've dubbed SLICE, School-Led Initiatives for Capital Enhancements. And the purpose of this really came to me from how I view facilities versus how, say, building level people and even the public view facilities. I was having a conversation with someone at the building level, and we were talking about carpet. And I see carpet that's 10 or 12 years old that's in great shape. And I'm like, man, we're saving money. But they're seeing, we have this old carpet, people aren't paying attention to us. So I thought I have to change the way I think, and I need to really bring those thoughts of those at the building level into our capital planning. So that's where this comes from. So the overview is principals and leadership. They lead these. They propose, design, and lead the facility improvements with the caveat that they must align with our priorities and our standards. And I'll get into this later, but then they also must align with the state laws for the building fund. This will encourage innovation, ownership, and collaboration between schools and our operational staff. Again, the money will be allocated from the building fund. It must comply with North Dakota Century Code Section 57-1517. So just a high level, what's allowed, building improvements, anything that's essentially not furniture, fixtures, or equipment, grounds or site work, or any improvements outside to the building or to the site itself. What's not allowed, furniture, supplies, people. That's always the first question is, can I buy furniture? Can I hire another pair on this? No, this is a lockbox that is only monies from our building fund, so it must be spent on those allowable expenses. Funding and rotation. So each year we're going to allocate approximately $250,000 to schools based on size, and then we'll go through a 3-year cycle to ensure equal participation, and we'll reassess at that point, and each site will guide its own projects. So an overview, in year 1, we've got Central High School at $149,500, Century Elementary School $43,900, Phoenix at $23,750, Wilder $12,500, Viking $25,000. As you can see, these are really directly correlated with the size of the school, so we can get a equal size impact on the school and on the students. Yep, go right ahead.
Is that enrollment or is that square footage?
It's a combination of both. Year 2, I'll just run through these quick. Schrader at 67, South 75, Discovery 52.5, Ben Franklin 30,750, Lewis and Clark 19,500, and Winship 17,250. Year 3, Red River 193.5, Kelly 40,500, Lake Agassiz 35.5. So as you can see, there's a wide range, like I said, based on the size of the school. And then the big thing here is we're going to omit. On this cycle, we're going to omit Career Impact Academy, Valley Middle School, and Twining Elementary and Middle School because those are going to have new schools based on other capital funding. In the future, however, they would be included in that second cycle should we so choose to continue this program. The benefits, so this is the big one. Principals will drive improvements that matter most to their communities. So it will allow them to say, I have this bucket of money to put where I think it's going to make the most impact. Or I have this thing that's been bugging me for 5 years that no one seems to want to address, and we can directly attack that project. And the alignment, it balances the site vision with district asset management. So we'll have, what I didn't want to have out of this is to have things kind of willy-nilly. This school does this school does that. Part of this is having a set of standards, like you can choose from these 4 carpets, or you can choose from these standard colors and these accent colors. So it's not really just that one principal's vision of how the building should be. It's within our framework. Yes, President Berger.
Just one clarification. We know that principals sometimes move buildings. That's a natural part of working in a district of our size. Mr. Bakke and Dr. Galach, are you involved at all in some of these, or would you, I mean, is there any connective tissue? Let's say somebody might, be involved in this process, naming something for their, quote unquote, their school. Is there any merit, or has there been any discussion about another layer to this? I'm just curious.
I have not brought the superintendents in on this. I've informed Dr. Brenner, but that's as far as it's gone with the superintendents. This was really meant to be to foster ownership while fitting within district standards.
Thank you. Dr. Hodak?
When you say the principals drive improvements, then each principal, so their actions and how they're driving this improvement may be different from one another.
Correct.
So that, then I'm going to just make sure that I shout out to those principals to make sure that both parents and students are involved, and that there's linked to their goals and objectives, the strategic plan, et cetera.
Thank you, Board Member Hodak.
Yes, Ms. Flynn?
Just to be clear, this isn't like I'm playing around with money, and I am, as a principal, and choosing not to use my whole allocation, so I'm gifting it to my neighboring school.
Correct. You cannot, we're not gifting this. This will be, I would not be just allocating them a bucket of money. Essentially, they would make requests on projects. We would go through the process. So really, what I wanted out of this was for them to understand the process that goes into making these building improvements, and for me to garner what is important to them and what is important to their constituents, if that makes sense.
Is that money allotment that you propose, like that's as much as each school will get, or was that just an example?
That's as much as each school would get.
Okay.
Yes, Dr. Galach?
First of all, I love the concept, so thank you. I'm just wondering if you can illuminate a little bit more, and we could do this offline if you want, just the calculus that was used. I just see some really differing numbers, and some of the buildings, I know the overall, you did that conditional chart, like did you put any kind of a weighting formula in? Because I look at the difference between the 2 high schools, for example, and it seemed really significantly different, and the states of their buildings are in a different state of repair as well, so I don't know if that's something you could illuminate a little bit more?
Yeah, that was purposeful. This is outside of the condition of the buildings. We're still going to do our regular capital maintenance that has to do with building conditions and conditions of their various parts of their building, but this is really just to give principals a vision within their school. So this is to say, regardless of the condition of your school, what project do you have in mind? We're not going to say use this to like for example, at Winship, we have issues with the soffit. We're not going to repair the soffit with this. This is going to be, I think we need new carpet in here. I want to change the paint in here, or I want to have different fixtures in the bathrooms.
Yeah, I understand that. Maybe I can just ask you later, but I'm just curious to know what you said it was enrollment and square footage. I'm just curious about the calculus, but we can talk about that even offline.
Yep.
Okay. Dr. Brenner?
I was just going to highlight what you just said, maybe give an example, like if a school needs a new roof, it's not coming out of those funds.
No.
That's a separate capital project, so.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, this is going to largely be cosmetic changes. For example, we've started playing with this a little bit with Central just to see how it would work. We removed those 2 trees out in front of Central that were kind of encroaching on the building, and we're looking at possibly adding a walkway in there. Those kind of things that may not be a high priority for me because it's not things that are directly correlated with building condition or keeping our buildings, we'll say, in good condition for education, but they're things that are important to the community and to maybe the functionality of the building. Any further questions before I move on? All right. More benefits, the collaboration. It strengthens partnerships between school leadership and operations. This was really the core of where I started on how do I create a better understanding between myself, between my staff, and the building level administrators and teachers. And the impact is it enhances facilities to support educational goals and student experiences, because that's why we're all here. And sometimes, I will be honest for myself, sometimes I get a little blind to that because I'm looking at the building and not necessarily the occupants of the building. So it helps keep me grounded in that piece of this work. Outcome is a thoughtful school-driven facility upgrades, clear fair funding process, and stronger connections between learning environments and school culture. It also has improvements that benefit students, staff, and the community. Any other questions?
Questions from board members on this part of the presentation? Dr. Hodak first, and then we'll come over to this side.
So when a school presents you with their project that they would like to be doing, are you the one that gives them approval, or is it just automatically, here it is, it falls within that budget that they have?
It would, the approval process would run through me, but I have talked to principals about this and how they felt about this. I would be fairly lenient about that, as long as it fits our standards, as long as it fits the law for the building fund. I'm not going to give a lot of pushback, because that's where I want to see where maybe I have some blind spots to these operational needs of the buildings.
Let's go over to this side. Dr. Lund first.
I'm very supportive of this. It reminds me of when I was at Altru, we used to talk about how if you really want to know how the processes are working, how things are working, you go to the front line and find out. You don't sit in some office in an administration, and this seems very similar to that. So I really applaud you on this. I think this is great.
Others? Mr. Clevin?
Just to reiterate what Dr. Lund said, you talk to the nurses, not the doctors. There'll probably be a few questions here. What stops frivolity? Like, are there certain projects that just make no sense, that are just deemed to be kind of frivolous, maybe a little bit of a too heavy of a word, but you know what I'm saying? Like, something that just doesn't make sense, regardless of how passionate the building is about it. Is there a backstop there?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, the backstop will lie within our department, within the Buildings and Grounds Department, and it will be our judgment call in the end. So there's not necessarily a standard set up by saying, hey, no, that's too much, but I welcome those discussions, and like I said, this is kind of a try and see what happens on this cycle.
Others, Mr. Clevin?
Yeah, thank you. All those funding limits, they're all under the threshold in Century Code in which you can directly retain a contractor. What's your procurement plan?
So the procurement plan would be, so I'm not necessarily looking for, especially the larger dollar ones, to have, we're going to do a $130,000 project. It might be $10,000, $13,000 projects. So we're going to break out what are your priorities, figure out what is doable, and then go out and procure quotes for those and work through those with the principals. 'Cause the biggest thing is I really want to see people at the building level to see all that goes into this, and I think that can foster some good understanding.
Do you anticipate having to hire professional design services, or the nature of the project such that you can, by your own narrative and exhibit the scope to get a fair quote?
I believe for the most part with those dollar amounts, we likely won't have to hire design, but if we would get to a project where we would have to procure design, that would definitely have to come out of that dollar amount.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions on this piece? Dr. Hodak?
Are there any plans for those principals to come and report out, like they report out on test scores and such, to us, what they use their money for, so that we understand that, or an update from you that here's what Red River's doing, here's what, something to that, so that we would have a clue, instead of hearing it from the public.
Yeah, so the beauty of this project is it's all coming out of the building fund, so I can't do anything without you guys saying yes.
I appreciate that point. I'll interject here. Again, this is germane to tonight's discussion because we did hear a budget overview and a fiscal year. This, again, is a separate fund than our general fund ledger. This is separate from any amount that came through a referendum. So for the district to be in a place where the building fund is healthy enough to be talking about this level of investment in buildings through a process like this, both speaks to the number of eyes that are on this, that we can be forward-thinking like this. But again, if anyone's still listening or is listening later, this is a different bucket of funds. The mills are levied for the building fund, and this is what we're talking about with these dollar amounts. Other questions from board members? Yes, Mr. Anderson.
I very much support this. I think this is a great use of time and involvement of building level administrators. Just questions on, a couple questions maybe. One first on overall project management per se of these. Project management would still be coming to you and your team to do the procurement, to Jay's point, and make sure everything's installed per district standards, going by your standards that you've set, everything of that nature?
Correct. Yeah, that would be, we foresee most of these projects being somewhat smaller projects. I really do see, even with the larger numbers, seeing it's going to be more likely that we're going to have 5 smaller projects than 1 large project. Because I think that can, both from our eyes and in the principal's eyes, that can have a larger impact.
And then maybe one to tag along that, you've said that you would have the ultimate ending say. I would assume that there would be a conversation about if there's things that may make sense to do in a different year, a different cycle, per se, because of some of those larger scale, HVAC or plumbing, whatever type upgrades that are going to happen that would in turn rip out the carpet that was just installed the year before, things of that nature, good coordination between. I'm assuming that would be, at the forefront.
Yep, and then really where we're going to start is going to principals and say, hey, give us, depending on their dollar amount, 5 projects, 3 projects, 2 projects that you would like to see, and let's talk through how those fit in there and if those are feasible, and then work from there to how can we make this happen.
Others? Ms. Flynn, and then we'll come back to Mr. Klepp.
I don't think I realized how outdated this room was until we got new carpet and new paint, and it just kind of brightened up the space a lot. And so frequently in residential real estate, I walk through a lot of 60s era homes with the same carpet that's been installed and wallpaper, and it literally just takes a nice refresh to make that space feel more comforting and welcoming. And so I think, like you said, sometimes you're like, hey, this is great, you got a 10-year carpet, but we don't see the phrase or what people are seeing on a day-to-day basis. So I really like this concept outside of those big safety foundational, necessary to do projects, and being it led by the building. I think this is good conversations for something for the principal to bring to PTOs. What are you as families noticing to bring to their staff? What are you as teachers noticing? So it could be something that all people are involved in.
Other questions? I think we had Mr. Clevin for one.
And despite all the questions, this is going to generate great goodwill. So I'm strongly in favor. So I'm asking questions out of curiosity. The next one I have is, let's say I got a leaky roof that needs more capital money than I can't afford it, even though I have to do the roof. Is there an ability to defer some of this money to those larger foundational capital projects?
Yeah, there's always that ability, and I would take direction from Mr. Baumbach, from the board on that. My thought was that this would be, the dollar amount is quite small, and I think that small dollar amount like you said, gives a huge amount of goodwill. So I more saw this as, hey, there's $250,000 off the top. We're not going to touch that. What can we do in addition to that? There are some other projects, as you'll see when we get into the facilities plan, where we may be able to shift some of those funds, though.
Other questions from board members? Dr. Hodak?
I just have one comment. First of all, I truly appreciate this. I think this is excellent. It goes back to good old site-based decision-making for these school leaders. However, I'm going to assume then that they understand what the, are they going to say that this is a new added job description or duty for me, responsibility for me that I wasn't prepared to do? And I'm going to assume that that has all been discussed and taken care of.
Every administrator I've spoken with has given me great feedback on this. And honestly, if there's money allocated to there that they don't feel that they would want to be a part of, we can just use that money and do it with it as what we see fit.
Others? Dr. Brenner?
As a former principal, we never had this opportunity. So I think this is we really leaned on our PTOs, to do some of the small things at the school level building. So I think this is a great opportunity to collaborate with our building principals. So thank you, Jonathan.
I have one question. It just relates to process. I'm assuming something will come back to the board at some point for, in a sense, approving this amount for this cycle. Any sense on timeline? What could we expect and by when?
Yeah, I expect to have a good portion of this by the final facilities plan. Really, I wanted to gauge support on this and really look to see if I should move forward with this process from the board's perspective, and then I will start scheduling those meetings with principals and getting more tangible and concrete plans in place.
So in light of that, then, for board members first, anything else that you would say as this comes from draft to final form? Anything from any of you? And Mr. Elwine, anything else you need from us? Any other question that remains unanswered that you hoped to get out of this conversation that you haven't heard yet?
Nothing on my end. I appreciate the questions and I appreciate the support.
Okay. Should we then move on to part 2 of tonight?
Yes, part 2. Here we go. I'm going to give a little bit of apology ahead of time. This got a little bit rushed because thankfully Mr. Baumbach, in meeting with him this afternoon, discovered an error in some of my numbers, so I had to quickly adjust some things. This does not have the building fund balances, but I can get those numbers to you. But it will have a breakout by year and the projects. So just a summary, the total investment's about $8.4 million, 44 projects, over 15 schools. Those that are not in there, again, we talk about Twining, Valley, CIA. And a large focus on this is roof, flooring, the slice projects, and then a large capital project at Schrader. So 2026, number one, this isn't the capital project I talked about, but Schrader roof restoration. I looked at including that later in a capital project, but I just don't feel comfortable waiting that long because this is probably our hottest project that we need to act on right away. So the first year, it's about $1.25 million with 6 projects. Essentially, we're going to do the Schrader roof restoration and then our slice projects. 2027, about 1.7 million, 9 projects. Wilder envelope repair, I alluded to that earlier. They've got some soffits that are starting to sag because of the construction, how they were built, and that's something we want to take care of before we start getting some weather penetration on there. Central skylight repair, that's one we've been deferring since I've been here, and we really need to act on that soon. The third is district flooring replacement. So this is what I was talking about earlier. We're going to go to a different method of flooring replacement. So what I did is I took about how many square feet of flooring we have in the district, about how much it costs per square foot, or how much to replace same, and then divided that over the lifetime of 12 and a half years. So I came up, and this is outside of gyms. I pulled gyms out of this, just to be clear. I came up with about $300,000 a year. So we're, depending on how much we have each year to spend, I allocate about that much to try stay on track with the life cycle of our flooring. And that is what I had alluded to before, Board Member Clevin, about if we would need to slide some of that money, that's an area where we could slide some of that money if we needed to take care of a bigger capital project. President Berger?
Yeah, so just to be clear, that second to last arrow point or bullet point, this is district-wide. This is not at the district office. We're not
Correct,
talking
sorry.
about MSCC. No,
Yep.
again, I'm just trying to clarify for folks listening that we're talking about the ability to replace a certain amount of flooring every year so that it doesn't all fall at the same time.
And the reason I wanted to move to this model was simply because it'll allow us, one, to tackle larger projects in the flooring, and two, instead of having to go building to building and find the worst carpet, we're going to say, this is the amount of money we have, where can we best use it this year? And then we have our slice projects, our second year slice projects. Feel free, anyone, to interrupt and ask questions. Dr. Lund.
Can I just ask a question about Schrader, because that seems to be our oldest, least best
Yes.
school right now. And when does it get to a point that we say, well, we're not going to throw $1 million here, we're going to throw $1 million there, we're going to do either a new school, or we're going to look at some other major kinds of things to Schrader Middle School? And I know there's numbers and certain percentages that way you get to certain, it's not worth it and stuff. And I'm assuming you, the experts, not just you, but Brandon and other people in B&G are looking at that and keeping track of that, so that we don't do a bunch of this and that and do a bunch of slice stuff, and then 3 years from now we replace it, or we do a $30 million addition or something like that.
Yeah, correct. And I'm glad you brought that up, because coming up in a couple slides, we'll talk about just that. No, that's perfect. I'm glad you're asking that question. So 2028, we're going to be spending about $1.85 million over 7 projects. Again, we're seeing a trend here: roofs, flooring. We have Lake Agassiz roof, Viking roof, Central gym floor. So we're at a point with Central where it's going to need to get repainted, and we're not 100% certain we're going to be able to sand it and repaint it. So I've got that slated in for that year. And then district flooring replacement, you can see it's pushed down a little bit. The other one was pushed up a little bit. It's all based on our pro forma numbers. And then back to our slice projects this year. That year is Red River, Kelly, and Lake Agassiz. Now for the big one. So 2029, about $1.9 million in projects, 8 projects. Century roof restoration, Schrader HVAC remodel, $780,000. It's more than that. We'll get to that in a couple slides. That's going to be a much larger capital project. So, and then district flooring replacement at $300,000 again. And we go through our second round of slice, assuming we continue that project. But now for the elephant in the room, the Schrader project. So what I looked at was the largest issues in that school. We came up with about $16.5 million. And that would address HVAC, the envelope, parking lot, and a minor interior refresh. This isn't going to solve all our problems. It's not going to give us the school we necessarily really want, but this is going to place us in a better spot. So this will require $2.09 million per year of debt service for 10 years, assuming a $16.5 million bond at 4.25%. Now, the reason I put this on 2029 is in August of 29, $1.31 million will be retired. That's us paying off our some parts of Cushman as well as the performance halls. So that would be an additional $780,000 yearly spend to the building fund for 10 years. Any questions on this since we're parked here?
Mr. Berger,
Yes, Mr. Clevin?
the 1.31 million, that's current debt retirement payment.
Correct.
I have one, and it speaks to Dr. Lund's point about and I know it's not calculus, but I like to use this phrase, the calculus involved with deciding at what point, at X number of percentage, replacement is more prudent than repair or renovation. So could you just remind us, generally speaking, the valuation or the amount that you would use in that calculus for Schrader Middle School?
Yeah, generally the number you use is 50%. So anything over 50% of new, you would say it doesn't pay to do this renovation. Let's build new. So if we use Valley, that's even as today's dollars, so it will likely be higher than that. So call it $55 million. So we're looking at $27.5 million. Anything over $27.5 million would put us in hey, we should maybe look at building a new school instead of doing this project.
Thank you. Dr. Glatch?
I think you may have already answered the question when you talked about the Schrader potential renovation. Are there any spaces in that set for renovation? There's been discussion about the inaccessible facilities for the ALP classroom and things of that nature, bathrooming children in respectful place, or the lunchroom size, things of that nature. Is any of that represented in that number?
No, this is just simply, we're going to upgrade the HVAC, get rid of tunnel air, we're going to get air conditioning in the whole school, we're going to fix the envelope, we're going to do a refresh on the inside, replace some aging pieces, and then we're going to redo the parking lot. So this is really kind of I wouldn't even call it a full-scale remodel, more just a refresh of the school.
Other questions? Ms. Flynn?
Can I ask about what redo the parking lot means, and will there be any expansion of the parking lot at all?
This doesn't include expansion, this would just include a repair and mill and overlay of the current parking lot.
Okay. I, as a parent perspective, would maybe consider expansion of the parking lot, only because there's barely any place for the teachers to park, and drop off and pick up are atrocious because of the size of that lot. And just the way that it connects to both Cherry Street and 32nd, there's a lot of safety issues. So perhaps if we're looking out that far, maybe we think about cutting into the grassy area a little bit, and maybe pushing the rink a little farther back. I don't know, but it's really hard over there.
Yeah, and that's a possibility. All of these, I will say, are based on kind of size and per square footage estimates I created based on the size of the parking lot, the size of the school, and about what it costs to do those things. So this has no design in it. This is just an estimate at this point.
Other questions, particularly on this slide from board members? Mr. Clevin?
I see there's no date assigned to this, so can we assume this is a discussion at this point?
All of this is the discussion. Yeah, no, this was on the 20, this was slated for 29 because of the retirement of that debt service.
Yes, Ms. Flynn?
Does that mean summer of 29, or does that mean 29, 2030 school year? So the project would, because I'm assuming an HVAC you'd want to do in the summer.
Yeah, correct. I can't give a solid answer on that at this point. It would largely depend on the cadence of the bond.
Mm-hmm. When that falls off.
Yep.
Yes, Mr. Malbach?
I can clarify that point. Thank you, Chairmember Berger. August 1st, 2028 is the final payment on that.
I'm sorry, I misspoke.
I just want to offer that I think the cadence is perfect because then you have enough time to plan for that following summer. 29.
Other questions, clarifying comments from board members on this piece? Yes, Ms. Flynn?
When we talk about bond, is that like a public referendum bond, or is that something that we take up ourselves?
Sure, happy to answer that. That'd be a building fund bond that can be done here. There's a period of protest. I believe it's 60 days, so anybody can vote. It would have to meet the measure of threshold. That would take quite the concerted effort to do so. So I would largely characterize it as a a board endeavor, not a public referendum.
Sure. Okay, thank you.
Other questions about this possibility or concept? Dr. Brenner?
Jonathan, could you just go back to the slice amount for Schrader? So that, I keep thinking of the classroom that Dr. Glatch referenced. I think you were referencing the medically fragile classroom. Would that be an option, the 67,000, to really upgrade that classroom?
Definitely.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Mr. Palmasino?
Just on that note, if you decide to do that, you could also use your district-wide flooring money availability to help with that classroom as well.
Yeah, correct. And that's kind of where I thought we needed to be to stay on track, but that's also a bucket of money that we can slide if need be.
Other questions, at least to the presentation so far? Yes, Mr. Larson.
I have one just kind of global question. One of the comments or one of the items was the central gym floor. And maybe this isn't permitted, but is there any appetite to seek sponsors? You know, if we want to have the red pepper central floor or something like that? You know, those kinds of things, is there any appetite or is that even permitted? I don't know.
I'll defer to our superintendents on that.
Yeah, we have sponsorship policy, just like All True in Cushman Field, so it'd be a great opportunity. Thank you.
Also, for what it's worth, I ate at the Red Pepper today. You all think I'm kidding. I think you can continue on to the remainder, Mr. Elwine.
So then the final year in this is our 2030 year, about $1.72 million, 9 projects. Again, we've got our flooring replacement. Now we add in that $780,000 of debt service for that Schrader project. That's additional to what is coming off. And then Wilder HVAC upgrade. So this would be looking to place a chiller on the roof of Wilder to try to get some air conditioning into that school. Because with this safety and security project coming up, we now will have the electrical capacity to do that. That was the large barrier before, was we would have to change our switchgear, we would have to change a lot of electrical infrastructure in order to do that. And now with the safety and security project, we have the ability to do that and also put it on the roof of the building. In addition to that, we've got our second round of slice schools, and like I said, these may change, they will change. On the second round, I did not add the 3 additional schools in there, so I apologize on that. So any further questions?
Questions on this draft plan as a whole? Clarifying remarks, comments from board members? Yes, Dr. Glatch?
Sorry, Jonathan. Community high school is not represented in Slice. Is that because of the lease agreement there, or is that just an oversight?
Yes, it's not our building, so we're really limited on what we can do in that building. You know, I would be open to adding a piece of money to that, but it would be a little bit more difficult because we leased that from the North Dakota School for the Blind.
Others? Yes, Mr. Clevin?
Sorry, I was apologizing to Joel earlier as I hack and cough all over our meeting. Trying to be quiet.
Yes.
But anyways, the discussion of Schrader, in my opinion, can't happen without discussion of another school south. And I think that needs to be folded in here somehow, you know, with debt projections, cash flow, those kind of things. It'd be premature to act on that much money in Schrader without that other discussion.
I completely agree.
Is
Yes, Ms. Flynn?
there then additional slides past this? Or,
This is it for today.
okay. I was waiting because, you know, Dr. Lund kind of projected the next thing, so, but I agree. I mean, I think there needs to be discussion about when we essentially go to the next step. You know, when are we proposing another referendum? You know, what are we doing with those funds? Is it elementary, middle, you know? Yeah, I think we need guidance on when the board starts to have those conversations. All of this is great, and I applaud your efforts because we've done a lot over the years, and I think we have set ourselves up for great success for future years, and so kudos to you and your team.
Well, I appreciate it. And just a comment related to that is, I think having that project on 2029 sets a great cadence for us because it makes a soft commitment from us, like, hey, we're going to do something, but we still have time to have the discussions on what we are going to do. My biggest fear is we're going to talk about it for 3 years, do nothing, and then Schrader gets deferred another 5 years. And I don't want that to happen because that school needs some serious repair.
Anything else from administration, district level? Any comments related to what we've heard tonight? Dr. Brenner?
I would just underscore that Schrader is asking on a regular basis, how soon will we get air conditioning? So at least this sets the mark, a benchmark date for that to occur. Somebody's oldest student may be out of that school by then, but it's a challenge. There's a certain portion of that building that does not have AC, and it gets warm. Lake Valley gets warm, and Lake Twining gets warm.
Anything else? Looking at Mr. Baumbach, Mr. Bakke, Dr. Glatch, anything you want to add for the purpose of tonight's presentation?
Thank you. I think it was just said there implicitly, but one thing I take away from this plan, which is great, is just that if there was going to be a plan to address Schrader, it really couldn't come any sooner than the 29 timeframe, unless, of course, there was a question to the public about a referendum. And so that helped me working with Jonathan as we put it together, put into perspective that question and how soon really anything could be done.
Any others? Thoughts, questions? Dr. Lund?
Well, I just worry a little bit about somebody in the public that sees about 3 minutes of this and thinks this is all kind of set in stone. I think it's a great plan. I think we should do it, but we don't know what's going to happen financially from the feds, from the state, as we've already talked about earlier tonight, what's going to happen to our enrollment. Because if enrollment keeps going the way it did this year, we won't need to be talking about new schools for a while. So I just want the public to be aware that this is a plan, and we have to plan. And I think Jonathan has done a great job with planning, but it's a plan that may be modified and tweaked as we go along, depending upon circumstances we don't even know about. And so I just want to make sure the public is aware that this is not a set in stone kind of plan.
Thank you. Others? Yes, Ms. Flynn?
This might be just a tad nitpicky, but I also, and I don't know the proper grammar, I would imagine that without context, there could be people that see big letters slice that we're cutting budgets from those schools. And so perhaps we could maybe do like periods in the acronym if we're using that externally. But I like the acronym. I think it's very clever and fun, but, you know.
I appreciate that insight. I did not consider that.
Other thoughts, comments? All right, Mr. Elwine, the final word on this is yours. If there's anything else you'd like us to know or any final thoughts or comments from you?
I just want to emphasize that this is a draft, and I welcome any comments now or if you want to meet with me individually. So this is a living document that we want to solidify and bring back to the board at our next facilities committee.
Thank you. Item 4, our next meeting is on November 24th, 2025, Thanksgiving week.